Welcome back to the Light Forge podcast, Legends Festival of Legends. That is the expansion name. This is Adwicta. We're doing a card review, and yeah, we're on Paladin. Paladins usually get the best arena cards because their whole thing is like put stuff on the board, do stuff on the board. It's very straightforward and it's very easy to translate to arena. So let's see what we get here for this set. The first card is Disco Maul. Disco Maul is a 2 mana 2/2 weapon. Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion +1/+1. Play minions while equipped to improve. So this one is quite good. It gets an A plus. 2 mana 2/2 weapon is about right for a normal weapon. The Death Rattle giving a friendly minion buffs is pretty good. And you can upgrade it like kind of endlessly, right? Depending on how long you want to hold this weapon, because you only have to play minions to improve it. And it's the arena. You're gonna be playing minions every single turn. The reason it's not higher than an A plus, and an A plus is like almost an S, right? But the reason it's not quite an S is that ultimately you're still just getting a buff, right, to an existing minion, and you're not controlling the board that much. You're spending 2 mana to deal 4 damage at separate points of time. Then you're getting a little bit of a bonus in terms of the buff. Is it really good? Yeah, it is really good. That's why it's an A plus. It's like almost S. S tier, by the way, our description is broken. So this is like just below broken. Um, it is a very, very good card, and we're all gonna hate it because it is common. It is a common card. Like you look at some of these S tier cards, right? Like Timber Tambourine may be way more broken than Disco Mall, but that's an epic card. So even if druids are everywhere, they're not going to get Timber Tambourines. That's an epic card. You look at Arcanine Ripper. Arcanine Ripper was our S tier Death Knight card. Super good. But like that's a rare card. So you are going to see it sometimes. It's not epic, but you're not going to see it all the time. Here, this may not be a actual S tier card like these other cards, but it's an A plus card. It's kind of close to the low end of the S tier cards, and it's a common. So you're gonna see it all the time. You're just gonna have to be ready for paladins to always put this on two, and then it doesn't matter if they get to use it or not, because it'll just keep buffing. And whenever they finish their 2 swings, which will all be on the board, all for tempo, and if you're using this and you're wondering, hey, do I just swing so I can get the bonus out really quickly? No, you just hold on to this. This isn't like Tambourine, where you would actually just swing face if you needed to, just to get the charges out. For this, you just hold on to it, because every turn you're buffing it. Every single turn you're buffing it. So it doesn't really matter how long you like hold it for. If anything, you're incentivized to kind of hold it for longer, right? Make sure you get this damage onto the board. And once you get your 2 damage on the board, whether it's on turn 3 or turn 4 or turn 5, that's when you get this ridiculous, like, just tempo boost. Even if it doesn't have initiative, right? Even if you have nothing on the board that you're, like, hitting with or whatever, just play any minion and do this. You also, if you don't have a ton of minions on the board, you can kind of control which minion it hits. So it is random, but it's random buffing your side of the board. So how random is that really? And you can get it to hit like a Divine Shield at least, if not something like more ridiculous. So this is going to be the defining card for Paladin. Like, not quite S tier, but super duper good in common. Alright. Next best card in Paladin is going to be Jitterbug. This one's rare, so less commonly seen. 4 mana, 4/3 Divine Shield. Alright, already good. Now, after a friendly character loses Divine Shield, draw a card. So not only is it already a above curve 4-drop, but when it loses its Divine Shield, which it is going to do unless someone assassinates it, you also draw a card. And if you have any other synergies with Divine Shield, like any other Divine Shields out and about, before this guy dies, if they lose their Divine Shield, you draw more cards. Its potential is insane for card draw. But even at its lowest floor, that's very high. It is a higher than on curve 4 drop that replenishes itself. Okay. After that, we have some nice stable B tier cards. First one is gonna be Funkfin. Funkfin is a 3 mana 2/2 Murloc with Divine Shield, and your minions with Divine Shield have +2 attack. So it's really a 4/2 Divine Shield minion, and then once the Divine Shield pops, it becomes a 2/2, and your other minions with Divine Shield all get a bonus too. So this is a B tier card. It's a above curve card, but not above curve by that much because it ends up with a 2/2. Like imagine it's a 4/1 with a death rattle of a 2/2. Like it's fine as a 3 drop, but it's not like doing amazing things. And then this ability carries over to anything else you have Divine Shields with. After that, we have Harmonic Disco. Harmonic Disco is a 5 mana rare holy spell. Discover a 5 cost minion, summon it with +1/+1, swaps each turn. So you can get a 5 cost minion with +1/+1 or a 1 cost minion with +5/+5. You generally want the 1 cost minion with +5/+5 because that'll just get you more stats, but it's not that big of a deal. Either way, it's going to be probably overstated for a 5 drop. And I guess you could potentially get some really sick, like, combo out of it. A comboing with itself, right? With good RNG. But yeah, but it's a B tier card. Pretty basic. Next, we have a Noyotroop. A Noyotroop is a 9 mana Anoyotron. It is a 3/6 mech with taunt. It has Divine Shield. It has the Death Rattle, which is to summon 3 Anoyotrons. So it has a lot of taunt. It will require a minimum of 8 hits to get rid of. And it's very annoying. It's a B. It's decent size, super annoying, very, very high taunt scores, but super duper 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 low damage, right? So it's pretty balanced. And then we have we actually have 3 cards in Paladin, which is unusual, but we have 3 cards in Paladin that kind of don't fit anywhere and are for, I guess, constructed level combos. The first one is Spotlight. This one's an epic card. 2 mana, tradable. Convert a friendly Divine Shield into a 5/5 elemental. Uh, like I said, if you just had a tradable card, it's probably D. So I don't know. Maybe this one should be a D plus. You know what? I'm gonna make it a D plus just to switching it to a D plus on the spot because it does do something, right? Like just tradable is a D, but if you ever have anything with a Divine Shield, you can spend 2 mana to basically get a 5/5 and take away a Divine Shield. The Divine Shield is worth 2 to 3 like health, so you're essentially able to spend 2 mana and get like a 5/5 and take away 2-3 health from one of your minions. Is that great? No, that is not great for an off curve 2 mana 5/5 that also costs something else, but it's better than what you normally get with a 2 mana card. And until then, it's tradable, right? The tradable tag is so huge. Like tradables just can't go that low. Um, all right. Next up is a Noyotroop. No, we already did a Noyotroop. So next up is Lead Dancer. Lead Dancer is a 6 mana 4/2 Death Rattle. Summon a minion from your deck with less attack than this minion. you got to plan this out. You got to build a deck for this. So the thing that you're summoning with less attack than this minion is actually some gigantic thing. In Arena, it's not going to work. It's just a really bad and small minion. It ends up being an F plus. And finally, another card that doesn't work and from Paladin is Boogie Down. This one's common too, so this will be quite dilutive of the Paladin's power as a common card that has a boosted offering rate. This is Boogie Down, 3 mana Holy Spell. Summon 2 1-cost minions from your deck. Finale, give them Taunt. I don't really know what Paladin is supposed to do with this in Constructed, but in the arena, one, I don't know how many 1-mana minions are in your deck, but even if you had them, this is like not great, right? Like normally, what do you expect from 3 mana? Like 2/2/2s? Well, what kind of minions are you having in your deck that's 1 mana? Like at best 2/2s, right? Like probably worse than 2/2s. You're probably gonna have some like 1/1s that draw cards or like whatever stuff. So I don't know what this is supposed to do in Constructed, but in Arena, it is bad. This is an F tier card. And I'm saying that, like, I'm trying to point out that this is super dilutive because up until now, there has not been a single common card that is F tier. There, for any of the classes. In fact, there has only been one card that is even D tier, and that's Harmonic Mood, in a otherwise pretty strong like Druid set. So this dilution is real, and I don't know if it makes up for the Maul being a common. It probably doesn't, but it's just not everything is good for the Paladin this time around, and that's important because usually everything is good for the Paladin. All right, let's talk about the legendary cards before we end this Paladin thing. First one is the legendary minion, Kangor, Dancing King, 5 mana, 3/3 lifesteal. Death Rattle. Swap this with a minion from your hand and give it lifesteal. So when you swap it with something in your hand, that means you get Kangor, Dancing King back into your hand. So the Dancing King never dies, unless I guess you have no more minions in your hand. But you have to like kind of play your hand in a way so that the card that Kangor swaps back in is super super big, right? Like that's what makes Kangor good, because once that card dies, it doesn't like swap again or anything. And Kangor's first body is just a 3/3 lifesteal, which starting on turn 5, which is the earliest that you could play this, would probably be like 2 mana. So you got to get at least 3 mana's worth off of a Death Rattle minion, which would be like 4 mana's worth of a minion. So for this to be like even an okay card, like we're talking like D plus or C, the thing that comes out has to be at least like a normal like Yeti or something. So this card gets a B, partly because you can control what comes out of it to a decent extent, and partly because you get the Kangor back and you can play it again, even if it's, depending on what cards you have in your hand, it may still not be great. But my point is, don't play it on turn 5, right? You got to really set it up. So you can make it work and be really good. You can get really lucky and be really good, but even at its not super good parts, it's still like a decently solid late game card. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty complicated card. I see in chat, one person says, I think this is terrible, and another person says, I think it's good. It's both, right? It just depends on what happens. Which is why I'm saying you have to set it up. You don't want when it says swap this with a minion from your hand, you don't want that to be a random minion. You want to have like 2 minions in your hand at most, and both of them are good choices for this to come out. And the problem with that is that you get Kangor back, right? So unless you're drawing or discovering a whole bunch more cards, the next time Kangor comes out, if you have only like one minion in your hand, and Kangor's out, and then you kill Kangor, that minion comes out, Kangor's back in, you play Kangor. Now you don't have minions in your hand, or you have whatever you have in the top deck, and now Kangor is like kind of a bad card, right? But you still got an extra card out of it. So when you set it up well, you're still like the future Kangors are not so good. If you set it up poorly, then the first Kangor is not even good, and you're kind of anti-tempoing yourself or throwing it all to RNG. Like that's why it's not really good. But it's also never really bad because you're still getting a decent amount of like tempo out of it if you do any kind of setup. So there's that balance in the middle of this card, right? Like don't do too much setup because then the card actually gets worse. But also don't just throw it out there on turn 5 because then the card is not good. All right. After Kangor, the spell is Starlight Groove. Starlight Groove is 3 mana, holy spell. Give your hero Divine Shield. For the rest of the game, playing a holy spell refreshes it. So this is basically like gain a very tiny amount of life. It is an F tier card, not an arena card. That's it for Paladin. Disco Mall is going to be the bane of your existence. We have a whole bunch of we have 3 S tier cards, but this card may just be the most impactful, most impactful class card in this entire set because it's on Paladin, and Paladin's always good, and it is A plus. It is almost at S tier level. All right, that's it for Paladin. See you guys. Next up is Priest.